One basic issue here. So if we look at the Khan Academy method, you'll actually see that it's very similar to that Gutenberg method that Morrison had proposed back in the 1960s. He's saying in the pre-classroom, we're going to give them information, but it's going to come in the form of a visual lecture. And I am pretty sure that Salman Khan hadn't read Dan Rome's book, but if you look at his lectures, you'll see that he applies those same principles. He's pairing the visual with the word. He's using that for that initial transfer of information, and the key point he makes is let the learner do it at their own pace. Okay, now all of the videos there, or at least most of them, right, Tom? They're only about 7-8 minutes. They're a very concise topic. They're things that your student or resident could watch on their cell phone in between OR cases. But they have those fundamental concepts. And then what he's talking about is in the classroom time, making those students do the application of knowledge, just like Morrison said with the Gutenberg method. Now that's exactly what we've been talking about with using CBLs or TBLs with our students and residents. Now if you go to the Khan Academy website, it's really a fantastic resource. When Tom first showed me this video, I said, well, let me try this out with my kids. So I went home, and you can make a little coach account. If you have a Google account, you can log in as a coach, and then you can assign your kids to be your pupils. And I said, kids, you got computers, get on there, and you can watch some of these videos. In addition, this site is mostly started out with mathematics. So I have kids ranging from just 6 up to 11. I said, just pick the things that are appropriate to what you're studying now. They also have a bunch of learning games on the site. And so I said, you guys play the learning games. It keeps track of how they do. And so I told them I'd pay them money, depending on how many points they got. There's a catch, right? They weren't just going to do it. And so they did. Like my daughters earned an American Girl doll, for example. So they really loved it. I said, you know what? I think that this actually might be a good thing. Could I use it with my students and residents? If you look then at the actual content on the Khan Academy website, what you'll see is it's split into several categories. You have math, humanities, test prep, and science. There is some content that could immediately be available to you to use with your students or residents. He has some great lectures on biostatistics. And, some of us may have learned that in residency or fellowship. If we do research, we might understand it a little bit better. But man, we expect all our residents to do research projects, and the thing they complain about is they don't understand any of the biostatistics. You could have them go and review these lectures and then use that time with them to actually teach them about study design. As far as in the science category, there are several lectures in biology and a few in healthcare. They have, in the years since this initiative started, they're starting to look more at specific medical topics. He's just testing out some partnerships with some faculty at Stanford, and they have a few basic videos up there, but there really isn't a lot of clinical content. And that's where Tom and I saw the opportunity. We said, this is a great concept. We can do visual learning. We can use the Khan Academy method and put that all ahead of the classroom, but we need the clinical content. And so that's when Tom and I came up with this idea of a Pearlcast. And that's a concise visual lecture in clinical medicine. Now, where did this idea come about? I think if we think back to our experience as medical students or residents, some of the things that we remember very clearly are not the things that we read in books or learned in lectures, but that there were these concise things that someone taught us right at the bedside. And in medicine, we call them pearls, don't they? Ton, what are some of the clinical pearls that you've learned in the last year? Name one or two.
Well, I was on my medicine rotation, and I was rotating with an endocrinologist who loved to draw things out for as she taught, and she taught me just how to dose insulin for a particular patient. So she'll draw her graft and walk me through it, and I just remembered at the time, oh gosh, I wish we could record this somehow, so that I can review it later on if I need to. But I was on with her for just maybe 2 weeks. That's just one example. I have a lot of other attendings who also did that with me. Just after seeing an interesting patient, took me aside outside the patient's room, and we talked about it. Often they'll draw something out, and when they do, that's when I really remember it. And those are just some examples.
Deb DeRosa this morning talked about up-to-date. We all love up-to-date because it gives us that immediate information we might need. But it's very different than what Tan is talking about, where someone taught him a succinct fact, he comprehended it, and he was able to apply it. That's very different than going to UpToDate and saying, oh, what's this thing I need to know right now, and then 5 minutes later it's out of my head. So we thought, if we're going to have a flipped classroom, we need to have a way to have meaningful clinical content. And so for the pre-classroom, we thought, well, let's take this idea of these clinical pearls and let's put a bunch of them together. And let's pick very succinct topics and make videos about them to teach a student and let them build on each other so that these can be the things that students do to get that fundamental knowledge before they come to the classroom. And once they do come to the classroom, that's when we're going to do these things. We'll do case-based learning, team-based learning, even simulation-based learning. And so that's what Tan and I set out to do. Now, we haven't certainly made as much progress as we would have liked to. You can imagine how much effort this takes to all put together. But I'm going to let Tan come up now and tell you exactly what he's done so far.
Okay. All right. So that Khan Academy website was, I thought, really amazing. And I realized that if we were going to do something similar, we'd need our own website. So I put one together. And this is just a very cursory outline of the kind of library that we would build based on the APGO Educational Objectives book that every medical student receives during their clerkship. And this is an example of a page where all the videos would be placed. Each topic, each objective would have its own page with the learning objectives listed, and then the videos on the bottom. I've currently made just one set of videos on PPROM, and it's up right now, and that's currently just the only set that we have. So the main question now is, we see what Sal Khan did with his videos, and I looked at it and I tried to figure out, okay, that's really neat, that's really cool. Now how do I get my attendings to do something like this? And real quickly I realized that most of my attendings are not exactly savvy with technology. And they'll look at that and that's very intimidating. So I knew that I would have to simplify this process as much as possible in order to get this started, because I know that I can't make all these lectures myself. I don't have those pearls. I want the attendings who do have these pearls to produce these. So you do need certain hardware and software in order to make these videos. First, you need something to draw with and something to capture what you're drawing, kind of like what Sal did. First, there's just simply the pen and paper. This is the most natural to everyone. Anyone can just doodle on some paper using a pen or any other writing instrument. It is the most natural way of drawing, but the setup can be difficult, as Dr. Nuthlapati and I found out, and post-production is considerably more complicated. There are more steps involved in getting the video to a website. You'll need a camera, and what's tricky with using a camera is you can't be drawing and hold the camera at the same time. And there's no special tripod that's made to retrofit one of these cameras on. There is actually, but the installation, like I said, it's kind of tricky. Well, unless you have something like this. This is a document camera produced by Elmo. You have to hook it up to a screen projector, and it does record an HD video, and it does record audio as well. So for those attendings who are very used to just doodling or drawing on a sheet of paper, this might be a good solution. And then you can record, after you record the files, you would just import it into your computer and then edit them and then upload them from there. Then you have these smart boards.